Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
For a life is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
It's
Mhm.
hard. Like in any situation like that, it's hard to be, you know, the person explaining to someone that like most of the time vaccines are safe. It just happened to kill your kid. Like that's always a thing.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
but
not even like strong evidence that it is the vaccine directly that kills.
You can have
I think it is. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but you can have kids that are just allergic to a component of the vaccine. So
Oh,
it's
of
not
course.
that they were killed by mercury or something like this. It's just they're allergic. The allergy was fatal, so you end up having to explain to the parent. Most of the time, this thing works. Most of the time, it saves lives. It's just statistically, it's a great thing, but it did kill your kid.
For sure, yeah.
So it's like,
So,
maybe not the
like
world's best
with
example.
regards to the death penalty,
Mhm.
my main question is this. So when we're dealing with like severe crimes, but not crimes for which you are like undoubtedly guilty, right? So let's say like I don't know, like you commit a severe crime and you think you'll probably be caught for it, but like they don't necessarily have, like it's not like they've got you for sure, you know what I mean? Like you'd still have to have a trial and all of that. And it would probably be like something lengthy because they don't have like solid evidence, but they could probably convict you. The question I'm asking is the death penalty a good what's the word? Something that scares you into behaving properly. I can't remember what the word is.
Punitive. Is it a good punitive measure?
No, because
A
punitive
deterrent.
is being
Incentive.
yeah,
Oh,
it's a
deterrent?
deterrent.
Yeah.
Deterrent is what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Right.
So is the death penalty a good deterrent for crime?
I think that one just goes down to what human nature is, and I'm not actually sure about the answer. If you were like, if everyone were rational, right, and atheistic, then at the point of death you cease to be. There's no possible gain afterwards, right? And so death should be like the ultimate bad outcome. But
You'd think so.
that's not always the case, and you get all kinds of weird effects, right? You get
You have optimistic
case-
nihilism.
optimistic nihilism. Wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
but-
No.
Hey man, we've got libertarian fascism and anarcho-communism. We can have anything.
Fucking
Libertarian
identity
fascism,
politics.
that's just
Take your
It's not an
postmodern bullshit
oxymoron,
out of here.
guys. Trust me.
anarcho-fascism. Best ideology. But no, I'm not actually. Yeah, that one's a hard one to answer. It just depends what human nature is. That's like a whole. I guess that's just a discussion on what it is that people, how it is that we make the decisions that we do. And I don't think economics has really sorted that one out.
But can you tell someone what they ought to do?
Can I tell someone what they ought to do?
What they ought to do?
So can I say something prescriptive? Yeah, I totally can. Whether it compel them though is a different thing. So like I could
No,
tell
but
someone like
would you be like at what point would you hold the stance that fuck I forgot wait
it's all good.
Good job, Terrence. Fuck.
dude I wrecked it wait
Nah, whatever, dude. So
fuck
yeah,
it.
the main reason I asked you that is that like that's one that I've heard a few times in the past. Is like well, so first of all, I personally do make the assumption that all people are fundamentally rational actors, and that the only reason that people let's say misbehave is because they're confused about how they should act. And so, like, a lot of people have made the argument to me, well, obviously the death penalty is the ultimate deterrent, but I find that to be, like, utterly unconvincing because the way I see it is this. If you should commit a crime for which the penalty is death, then man, if you're fucked anyway, you might as well fuck shit up. You are gonna do everything that you ever wanted to do, and it doesn't matter how many things are like condemned with death. You know what I mean? Like you can't can't die twice. You're fucked.
Yeah, no, you're right. Though I'm not sure if that really differs to life imprisonment. And in fact, I get the impression that people actually treat life imprisonment pretty much the same way. You know,
For
if you're gonna
sure.
go to jail for life, might as well just fuck shit up anyway.
Oh yeah. And
Um,
in fact, like inside prison, people who have life sentences often commit significantly more crime that earns them many more life sentences because they're already there for life.
Yeah, there's nothing more that you could punish them. They're already there for life. What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? You can give them another life sentence, which is great, but
Stack
They're
those life
unpunished.
sentences on. Redundancy.
Yeah, bro. You got
inject them
400
with
lives.
drugs to make them live that long. Make them live
Yeah,
that
dude.
long, right?
That'd be brutal.
Yeah, dude. Shit.
I've seen a cool argument. Well, not cool. Like it's just an interesting. There's like a whole different perspective of this. I've heard from people that like just executing them is just too easy on the criminal.
I don't really
like,
understand
So
that.
you think
The idea is
torture is
that-
the way? I like your style.
Well, the idea is that you make them live out the rest of their life and then die due to natural causes.
No, what
and have
about
them know
torture?
that they could have been part of society for that entire period of time? So I mean,
Yeah,
they'll
but-
get everything else, but they just won't be a
mean,
part
like,
of society.
I don't really think that like that's going to be a particularly strong deterrent in the end though, because like
True.
ultimately, when you're saying like you're gonna force someone to live out the rest of their life and die of natural causes, but they're not gonna be involved in society, right? What you're
Hmm.
saying is that like you're just like condemning them to like the life that they would
Privacy.
have lived anyway, except you're saying, well, fuck off. We don't want you around us.
You're just stripping privacy.
Stripping privacy.
Privacy? How so?
Because they don't, like, you don't get to go where you want.
It's not privacy, dude.
Oh, that's
You
more like
want to
maybe
bring
you
out
mean-
the definition?
Yeah, of course. Maybe you mean autonomy.
yeah, that's a bit better. I get what you're saying. Yeah, sure, they lose that.
No, like the freedom of choosing
Yeah, that's called autonomy.
your destiny.
That's called
Destiny.
autonomy.
Are we generally determinists or not determinists in this room?
I'm a determinist.
Right. So in a deterministic setup, no one chooses their destiny.
Well,
That
in
would
some
be
sense that's true, but in some sense everybody chooses their destiny.
Yes, but
Destiny-
time is linear for us. Like
But
in a
time is not
non-linear
linear in
case,
general.
time is linear for us in our perception.
When you say linear, you
mean,
mean like what
The time
causes?
cube.
He means
Yeah,
like
maybe-
Oh no,
going in,
no!
going,
Who the
going-
fuck said that?
I did.
Go-
Do you know the time cube?
Yes, who the fuck said that? Wait, I can't hear you. Sorry. Yeah, I'm
Who
looking at Discord now. Who is
Hoovis.
it's
that?
Hoovis.
It's Hoovis. Oh shit, dude. Yeah, the fucking time cube, dude. Do you
Someone
know about
killed
the flesh
themselves over that.
portals? Dude, do you know about the flesh portals?
I have not heard that one.
Oh, dude, okay. You like that one, I guess. Pretty deep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
No, it's all good.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, good man.
The fucking time cube, the in sync. If you haven't, if you're not aware, be aware.
Thanks for the what would you say?
Oh, it's pretty fucked up.
I don't even know. My words aren't good tonight.
I assume Terrence is derailing again.
Yeah,
Oh no,
doesn't
oh
he
no, why
always?
is he
That's
here?
his
Why the
only
fuck
job.
is he here? Fuck
Shame, I
you,
was hoping
Julius.
to actually listening to hear you on midnight go at it over something.
don't care.
Okay. We were talking about determinism just now.
Just a brief tip of the hat to it. I'm just saying, like, so someone asked the question of freedom to choose one's fate or destiny. That's its own big discussion. Potentially something none of us have.
Mhm.
Or potentially something all of us have, regardless of whether we're in jail or not. Depending on how you look
It's
at
an
it.
interesting one, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
your autonomy is more restricted in prison, but it's never fully removed. If you
For
wish.
sure, yeah.
In fact, a lot of modern prisons actually expand your options today. Like you're not just thrown in a dungeon and do nothing. Some places you get to study, write, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
It's gotten to the point where like I've seen the case, or like it was like a meme argument, but it was a fascinating thing to just consider on its own. But it's like, if you're in America, commit a crime and you'll actually get better welfare in jail. But hey, guaranteed shelter and food.
That's the ticket, man. If you're a homeless person, that's like fucking gold.
Can you show me a correlation on that's actually happening?
No, I
Oh,
can't.
come on, dude.
No, I did say it was a meme argument. I don't know exactly how sensible that is. But hey, if there's a study for that, we know that poverty correlates with crime. So we know that there's an association. We don't know which one it runs. We don't know if they're even connected. But hey, fun to ponder.
So
that
midnight.
leads me to
Question. Do you think that truth exists?
oh damn it. That one's tough. I find that
A
question
loaded
really
question.
hard.
It's a loaded question.
Ah, shut the fuck up, Terrence. You're a loaded question.
Your
How
existence
I
is
loaded your
define
loaded.
mom like a question last night.
instinct?
No,
Define
yeah.
truth.
Divine
But,
truth. No, I'm asking him to define truth, you dickhead.
Fuck. Okay.
I'm generally a skeptic on this, not a nihilist. I won't really say that truth doesn't exist. I'm not sure how to say that, but
It's pronounced nihilist.
Oh,
Nihilist.
fuck it
It's
is.
nihilistic.
No, he's memeing because he doesn't know how to pronounce it.
okay, fine. I don't really care, but I'm going to be skeptical about it. I'm not entirely sure how well it is that we can go around as human beings with all our faults. Yeah, with us being fallible, it's really hard for us to tag things as true.
Of course.
Particularly if
But
you
I
take
think-
particularly if you take the justified true belief type definition, that one's particularly unwieldy. We can determine something's a belief, easy. We can determine something's justified, easy. But knowing what it is true is hard.
Yeah.
'Cause
I don't really even understand the justified true belief
Yeah.
definition of truth, because how can you
Right.
use the word true in like, how can that be one of the conditions of it? You know what I mean? Isn't that
it's
then you're like taking justified and belief out of the equation, and you're saying I have failed to define my word.
yeah, I don't. So I mean, if you use it that way, then it's pretty awful. But you can define it differently, and there's a whole bunch of works in epistemology that are what we call deflationary. They try to take the word truth and they deflate it. They make it less crazy or more mundane. And because
There
it's
is no
less crazy, it's
Well,
easier
there
to
is no
do.
absolute truth. There is no truth because you can't really prove anything that ever happened, so you're gonna have to be pragmatic about it. That's the only way
Okay,
you
but
can
I assume that what you're saying is that you don't think there is such a thing as truth.
I don't think there can be, and if
Yeah, no, I realize that,
would
but
be a universal constant.
look, the issue is that if you're gonna make a claim like that, you have to put the words "I think" first.
So wait, are you absolutely certain that there is nothing we're absolutely certain of?
I mean, I don't think I know I'm not certain of everything.
Oh,
no.
so you're
Whoa.
certain. So you're certain
Yeah.
that you're not certain of everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a contradiction.
I know.
Yeah, so it's not valid. Like, according to the law of non-contradiction, that is an invalid proposition.
Contradictions do not exist in reality, my friend.
Oh,
But is our thoughts real?
Terrence,
Are our thoughts?
Terrence, don't make me
Yes.
fucking come over there.
Terrence, you're not real, so be quiet.
So our thoughts aren't real. as there.
Dude, I will
Okay.
rape you.
I wouldn't call this a debate because Terrence is allowed to speak.
I reckon.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh,
So
damn
we're
it.
talking about truth, right?
Okay, so personally, pragmatist. So
So you pragmatic theory of truth.
yes, pragmatic theory.
Oh,
That's what I'll do.
incorrect.
Which is an escape. That's a straight up escape.
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
Oh, what do you
Elaborate on that
Aren't
one.
you being absolute no, saying it's incorrect?
I'm not being absolute. I'm saying it's my determination that it's incorrect.
Okay, what do you use out of curiosity?
I use a definition of truth which is as follows. Truth is that which is, as it is, independently of subjective perception, evaluation, or observation.
Which you can never find because you don't know if
But that's irrelevant. The point is, I can infer that such a thing exists.
What about intersubjective
Yeah,
observation?
I'm talking
Do
about
you
something more
infer
than
that
intersubjective.
something? Are you inferring that something that isn't subjective exists from subjective experience?
Yes. Yeah.
Ah,
Isn't that a no-no?
Nope.
that's interesting. I do not know. Well, I personally don't understand how it is that anyone could derive objectivity from subjectivity. It feels like
It's actually pretty simple. It's like, okay,
Sounds a
so
bit like you're putting the cart before the horse, doesn't it?
I mean, that's a funny criticism to make, really, because it's the exact opposite of that. Like, you are putting the cart before the horse because you're saying, like, subjective perception is the metric by which we measure these things. But I'm saying, like, in order for subjective perception to exist, subjectivity has to be true, right?
subjectivity has to be true.
What do you mean? A subjectivity
in-
means
Everything
that
has
it
to
holds true
exist.
for you as a person.
No. Subjectivity has to exist.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
are there things
So-
that are subjective? Yes, but it
No.
doesn't.
But what I'm saying is, like, if there are things that are subjective, then subjectivity as a phenomena exists.
Well, all you'd really be saying is that what I feel like what you'd only be doing is this: there are things that are subjective, and then all you're going to do is just restate that again.
No, but
so that
there's an
there are things that are
inference.
subjective.
There's an inference. I'm saying because there are things that are subjective, if
Yes.
that is the case, then subjectivity has to be objectively true. Because if it is not, then there are not things that are subjective.
So, like I think that all you'd be really doing here, though, is like there are things that I consider subjective, therefore there's this property of subjectivity. Sure,
No.
but it'd be like a definitional.
I'm
thing. It wouldn't
saying that for there to be a property of subjectivity, subjectivity has to be.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like
so-
that's
and
the
then-
same
and
as
so what
saying
I'm
that
saying
there
is-
are.
I'm saying subjectivity has to be in the objective sense. It can't be the case that subjectivity exists in the subjective sense, because unless subjectivity is actually real, then subjectivity doesn't exist in any sense. You can't say
Okay, so-
subjectivity exists in the sense of subjective truth, because that is a consequence of the thing that we're considering.
Right. So what I think you'd be doing here, right, is that you'd be saying, I perceive red apples, therefore redness exists.
Something like that, yeah.
The redness is kind of already there in you perceiving that they are red apples. So like,
No, it's more general than that, though. I'm saying, like, I perceive, therefore perception exists, and if perception exists, it cannot be the case that perception is only a perception, because then, if perception is only a perception, perception is not objectively real, and if perception is not objectively real, it can't exist within perception, because that's not there. Like, if you say perception is not objectively real, you cannot say something exists within perception.
but doesn't your first line already tell you that perception exists? So,
No,
like,
but I'm
you're not
saying
really...
there's something more to it, right? Because we're trying to differentiate what it means to say something exists. So most of the time, when you and I say something exists, we mean that it exists within perception, right?
No, well, I mean, that's not what I would say.
I mean,
I'd
that's
say
how
it
we're apprehending
exists.
it.
I would say that it exists outside of perception.
Oh, so then you're
So-
saying there's something that's objectively true.
Well, not necessarily. I say
So
that like,
then-
when we say that something exists, right? Like say that tree exists, it doesn't just exist because you perceive it.
No, of course,
It
but
has an
that's what I'm getting
existence
at.
that causes
If-
perception.
If something exists outside of perception, then
Mhm.
how is that not something that's objectively true? Like, isn't existing outside perception equivalent to the definition of objective truth that I just provided before?
I mean, it's so I think there's a difference between science true is has a true value of true, but science objective exists independently of perception, but they're not necessarily equivalent. So
Yeah, they
if
are.
I say
True in the ontological sense means exists.
Right, yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah, this is very similar to the ontological proof of God, but
Mhm.
I don't really believe that properties kind of.
But I'm not saying God.
You're
I
not
wouldn't-
saying God.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so brash as to use the word God. I'm saying, like, if
Hmm.
we say that perception exists, then sorry, if we say that things that we perceive exist, right? That there are things within perception that we can perceive, right? We can make an inference about them and say that they actually exist outside of our perception. And if they exist outside of our perception, then that is what we call objectively true. The way they are outside of our perception, completely independent of our perception of them, that's what's true.
Yes, although we have no access to what's outside of our perception.
Of course, but we just made an inference. We don't have to access
Yeah.
it directly. We can make an inference and conclude that even if we cannot directly access objective truth ever, we can infer with confidence that there is such a thing.
Hoovis, are you there? Hoovis.
I don't feel convinced, but it is an interesting idea.
I would love
me
to know what
personally-
exactly you find unconvincing.
Well, maybe it's just I approach it differently. So I say that like what, and I try and make this kind of very. Hopefully, this is accessible.
Mhm.
What we have first is our experiences. That's the
Yes.
first kind of substance of it all.
Yes.
It's just our experience. What we do next is just infer what causes that experience. But all we're ever doing is inferring. It's conjecture, hypothesis, guesswork, right?
Close.
Because it's always conjecture, hypothesis, guesswork. None of that ever attains the value of true. It just becomes more or less likely if you wish.
Of
It
course.
never actually becomes true. It just
Of course.
becomes more or less likely.
But I don't
Right.
think that I said that we could apprehend objective truth. I said that we can indirectly apprehend objective truth by saying that it is a justified inference.
Justified inference.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah. By all means, when we were discussing what it means for something to be true, I think that we can figure out what is justified and what is a belief.
No,
The
but
word
I'm saying that
true in that kind of definition is what kind of screws with me because I
no,
don't
but
think
here's
I
what I'm saying is
have
that
access to that.
the inference that I'm saying is justified is the inference that there is something that is objectively true. Even if we cannot ever know it, there is such a thing. That's why things exist. Right? Like, there is something that's true at the basis of the existence of things that causes them to be here, and that thing, whatever it is objectively true, and even though we cannot ever know it, we can infer that it's there.
Right. There is something that is true. I feel like there's something wrong with the sentence though.
Mhm.
So if you say there is something that is true, right?
Yes.
Then I think that sentence itself it's just the way we use language, right? That sentence itself can only be true or false, right?
Yes.
We only expect it to only be true or
Of
false.
course.
If it is false, then there is nothing that is true.
Yes.
But that statement would then be true, right? Because that
Yes.
statement is true, then it's not possible for that initial sentence to actually be false, meaning that the
That's
moment
my
it is
point.
asserted is by default true.
That's the point that
but
I'm making.
Linguistically speaking, we don't have a construction that
No,
is valid.
But
and
I'm
like
saying that it's more than that.
syntactically.
I'm saying it's more than that. It's more than the fact that our language is limited. I'm saying it's not a limitation of language. It's a limitation of like objects. You cannot have an object that says that there is nothing that is true, because the object would not exist in order to say that thing. Right? Like, it's not a limitation of language. It's a limitation of what it means to exist. An existent thing cannot deny that existence is true. Can't be done.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
no, I see. No, I think it's a limitation of language. So all of I see logic as logic is formalized language, but language is what's first. Language is how we describe the world around us. Yeah. But
I don't accept that
by
logic is
default,
formalized language.
logic is sometimes described as a formal language.
No, logic is a
example.
formal language, but logic
Yeah.
is not the formalization of language.
What do you think inspires logic?
Logic
not
is
language.
derived from the consistencies that we can observe in the world.
Ah. Yeah, I mean that's one possibility. Though I don't think we observe enough to where I don't think we can verify things like the law of non-contradiction.
Of course, but we don't
because
have
their
to
scope is
verify them.
infinite.
We
Yeah,
just
no,
say
this-
that they have never been disproven and that they seem like they will never be disproven.
Ooh, yeah, so I would disagree with that. I think that they're actually kind of different. So I mean, they're not like the laws. Like say, the law of gravity is true because we have this kind of, well, among other things, we're able to verify it, right?
Well, we're able
don't
to
see-
demonstrate it. Let's be clear about that.
Hmm?
Because verify means something very specific. We cannot verify the
Okay, true. Right.
mechanics of
We
gravity.
can demonstrate it.
Mhm.
It's testable. It's
Mhm.
testable, and we can see the results of those tests. So
Yep. Specifically, it's repeatable.
yeah, sure. Yeah, reliable. It's
Yep.
another way of looking at it. But the LNC is not quite like that. The LNC is something we can actually know a priori. We don't really need experience. And I would say that's because it's something that's asserted at the very level of language. So at the level of language alone, no matter what language you ever use, every component of that language will be itself. Every referent
Yes.
we use in our language has to be
Of
itself.
course.
Like
Yep.
if I use the word referent apple, it has to be referring to at least itself, and then perhaps to an object in the real world, but at least itself. So if I say courage doesn't need to point to any real world object. It's an abstract.
Oh, I don't accept that.
It points to itself. It doesn't have to point to a real world object,
I don't accept
but
that.
it
I
does
think that
at least.
I definitely think that like, first of all, the law of identity is something that we observe in the environment. Like when we say, for instance, that like day to day things don't become not themselves unless they transform through mechanics, right? What we're saying is that things are just themselves and not something else, which is the law of identity.
would
And you can
Say
you can
that,
look at the world and see that.
ooh, I would say quite the opposite. I think the law of identity is something that doesn't hold up well outside of our language, right? So you aren't really you. So what happens with you, right, is there's an insync, what we can call an insync prime. Then there'll be a derivative of that, right? That's what you are. Although in the next moment, you're a derivative of what you were before. They're never actually the same thing. Right?
It
And
feels
nothing
like
in this
we're
world is ever the
equivocating
same
though.
thing.
Feels
Not-
like we're
not
equivocating.
Not equivocating. There, I would say
Identity,
there's
right?
no object. No, there's
You
no
just started.
object
You started.
that is
you- so
self-identical in the real world.
no, but you started to like talk about identity as in my identity. Now, my identity, as in
Mhm.
InSync, is completely different from the identity of an object, again in the ontological sense, right? The law of identity refers to the identity of the object, not to my subjective identification of who I think I am.
No. I'm talking about you as a physical object.
No, but
So
I'm saying
forgetting
like me
consciousness,
as a
right?
physical object has nothing to do with InSync, right? Like
No,
I
as an
am
example.
a human. I'm a human,
Yep.
and there is no human prime. I am a human every single day that I bear the DNA of humanity.
Oh, okay. So the word human, there's different parts of language, and they all fascinate me, right? Humans, that word is a category like chairs, right?
Yes,
They have a family resemblance to each other.
of course.
And this is what, and because if you have a family resemblance type thing happening, it's quite tolerant of change. It doesn't actually need something to be identical. You don't need identity. You don't need
Like we're not talking
equivalence
about
to-
something. We're not talking about something being identical, though. We're saying that it's always fitting the category which defines it, right? So we define humans not by the fact that we have no change at all. We define humans by the fact that we all share a specific pattern of DNA, and within that pattern, we have individual differences. But a human is a human insofar as they share human DNA, and it's got nothing to do with the representative label of human that we've put on it. That is subjective identity. The objective identity is in the DNA of humans with which we all partake, right? Like all of us have the DNA of human beings. That has continuity. That identity of us as humans doesn't change, and it cannot change.
Aren't all identities subjective?
No, wait.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is there's a difference between subjective identity and the identity of an object. Like a square is a square. And it's not because we're calling
because we put that name on it.
No. But that's what I'm saying is it's not because we're calling it a square that it is a square. Square is a label that refers to a set of ideas. Now, those ideas are always those ideas, regardless of the label that you attach. So, like a quadrilateral with 4 equal sides. That is always a quadrilateral with 4 equal sides. It doesn't matter what labels you use to refer to it.
No, but the label contains the definition.
No,
right?
I don't accept
Quadrilateral
that.
is in fact a figure with 4 sides. I mean, that's how it's defined.
No. But the point is that we describe the world through the definition. We don't like create the definition. We are deriving useful definitions to apply to the world, and we then say that the word corresponds to the definition because we want to refer to something that we want to talk about, and the reason we want to talk about it is because we think that it exists. Like it's not because
we have words that point to non-existent objects.
Like what?
Santa.
No, that's not non-existent. That's imaginary. It exists in the imagination.
It exists in the leprechauns exist in the imagination then.
Correct.
Oh. Well, that's okay, that's different. Fine, yeah. If existence expands into, if you say everything imagine
Of course,
exists.
everything that has a manifestation in any sense is called existent.
Yep.
So I'm saying like all words are used to refer to parts of like the experiential phenomenological experience.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
Yeah, so then the words that we're using, the symbols that we're using to refer to these parts, do not define the parts, but rather we like arbitrarily assign symbols to refer to things that are already there. And insofar as those things are already there, they have an identity which we're not imposing upon them.
So the imaginary objects are already there before they are imagined.
No. The imaginary objects are already there as in they exist as a potential mental object, and like your brain is like equipped to like conjecture them, and so like in the wiring of your brain is your ability to conceive of this thing, right? Because it's a pattern that matches your neurology, and when you conceive of it, you didn't create it, you discovered it.
Right. So if two people imagine independently the same thing, opposite ends of the earth, imagine the same thing, they actually discover the same entity.
Close. They conceptualize the same entity, which exists as an object in imagination. Yes. Like you could call, like I think the difference is that discovery is more like the first time something is found.
Right. So, we have Leibniz and Newton, and let's pretend that they don't talk to each other very much. And they both imagine calculus. Are they discovering the same thing? Or
Yes.
are they doing something different?
No, they're discovering the same thing. That's why, like, if you and
Mhm.
I were to discover calculus again today, it would have the same rules.
Do you think that all
Like-
forms of calculus have the same rules?
No, I think all mathematics fundamentally has the same rules as all other
I
forms
think
of
he's saying
mathematics.
that, like, if society collapsed and we lost all knowledge of the past, if you guys had to rediscover and like rebuild calculus from scratch, it would behave the same as it does today.
Yeah, and like, we would quote unquote construct it in exactly the same manner, because either it is constructed in the way that we have now, or it doesn't work.
Provided there is in fact a consistent reality between then and now, yes. So given that assumption, yeah, sure.
I mean, I think that we'll like implicitly make that assumption. The continuity of reality is a fairly intuitive.
It's not just continuity. Continuity is like, say, something you have for yourself, right?
It's just
But this would
it is.
be-
I said continuity of reality. It is just that.
It's far more than continuity of reality.
It's not.
just
How?
It's not just continuity. It's the idea that the rules of this reality stay unchanged,
Are
right?
continuous.
Which is a far more.
Wait a minute. That is just continuity.
No, your identity. So this is where we can talk about you as a human being, right? Human identity is we call it has it has self continuity, right?
It has
You
a
are the
type of
same-
continuity.
You identify as the same person for a long period
No,
of time.
no. So like,
But it
you're
doesn't mean
talking about.
unchanging.
No. You're talking about the continuity of identity, and what that refers
Yes.
to is the perception of the unchanging you. Even if it's not unchanging, what we mean when we say continuity in the sense of your identity is that you wake up each day, and although you're different, you seem to you as if you are the same thing, even though you have differences. That's what we mean. What I'm saying is the continuity of reality is exactly that. It's the continuity of the structure of reality. Even if the phenomena were to look vastly different to now, as long as the rules were the same, all we would be talking about is the continuity of reality.
I don't think I'd pick the word continuity. Maybe I'm just nitpicking.
Okay, so continuity
Only
means
continuity would be-
the unbroken and consistent existence or operation of something over time.
Consistent existence or operation of something else. Yeah, sure. Synonyms are flow and progression. I don't think the laws of reality, if such things exist, progress. I don't think they flow.
No.
If anything, calculus is a fixture, right? It
Where
stays
did
the same. The
I say
actual-
flow? Where did I say flow?
You're using the definition. I know the definition you're using, right? Synonyms here are
No, but synonyms.
uninterruptedness,
What does
flow,
synonym?
progression.
What does synonym mean?
Synonym, words that are similar and give you and are
Oh,
related.
there we go. Yes,
Having-
so it's similar. It's not
Having
equivalent though, right?
Are useful for understanding something. So
No,
even
you
the
can't.
unbroken existence of reality, for example, if you want to critique the original definition, the unbroken, that's word by word, unbroken doesn't tell you that it's going to be the same.
Yes, it does. That's
doesn't
what
even tell you it's going to be
unbroken
the same.
means.
No. Unbroken means it's continuous. Like
If there's a
continuity and
change, okay, if there is a change, that is a break in the pattern. Like by
Not
definition.
necessarily. No. So the
So-
sense of continuity here, maybe I'm gonna lean on the mathematical sense. Continuity is when you can sketch a graph and not lift your pencil off the paper. But this doesn't mean that graph, the functions dictating it, aren't changing, right? You can even have a multi-part defined function, and as long as your pencil's being lifted off the paper, it's considered continuous. So,
No, but you're not
such can be
under.
the word
Yeah. Look,
as well,
it
right?
seems
Because it's not broken.
it seems
as
like
such.
you're including like the superficial change, which can be exhibited by a continuous
I
thing.
mean to say,
As no, like there's a difference between change in a fundamental sense and change in a superficial sense, right? If the thing fundamentally is continuous, it can have superficial change without breaking the continuity. But if the rules change, then there is a break in the continuity. There has to be. That's what the rules changing mean. If the graph, if the
So-
rules of the graph changed halfway through, you would have to lift your pencil.
so I'm saying that instead of the word continuity, perhaps you mean that there is in fact a something about the world we live in that is permanent. Change
No,
is not
I
even a relevant
absolutely-
consideration here. It's
No.
permanent, right?
I absolutely
No?
mean continuity. I don't mean permanence because I
Why
mean the
would you
thing
mean
that's
permanence?
permanent. I mean the thing that's permanent stays the same. It's consistent.
Mm-mm. So permanence is going to be slightly different to continuous.
I know.
Right?
I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't just mean permanent.
You don't just mean. Let's say permanence
Yes,
is
so
stronger.
permanent. Okay, so
quality.
if reality, if I mean the permanence of reality, I mean the fact that reality stays there. That's what permanence means. It has nothing to
Okay.
do with
So
staying
I
the
mean
same.
that the laws of nature are themselves permanent.
No, but
Not that
that's
we
not
have
what
them today.
permanent means. That
Wait.
isn't what permanent means.
Uh,
Permanent means it does not become absent. That's what permanent means.
no, it means lasting or intended to last or remain unchanged indefinitely. So what I'm trying to give to you is the idea that we don't necessarily have unchanged indefinitely. It doesn't change. It's continuity is not even relevant when something doesn't change.
The way that change is being construed in that sentence is in the present absent sense, right? Change is in it stays present. It doesn't change as in from presence.
No, this is not presence at all.
So
Like,
permanent.
for example,
something that is a permanent fixture of an environment. What does that mean?
I'm using the actual definition, just as you did
No,
earlier.
but I'm just asking you
Lasting
in this
intended to last
context.
or remain unchanged indefinitely. I'm looking at the all remain unchanged.
Yes, look, I understand that, but I'm saying, like, it seems to me that you're misconstruing the last part of that definition. So let's consider how it's used in instantiation, right? So when you have a permanent fixture of an environment, what do you mean?
The laws of nature are such a thing to me.
No. I'm just, don't try to
Permanent.
relate it to a different thing. I'm saying, like, let's think of like a video game environment, okay? If I have a permanent fixture in a video game environment, what am I saying about the thing?
You're saying the programming language of the game cannot change. Yeah.
No, that's not what
true.
I'm saying.
It's
No,
permanent.
I'm saying a permanent fixture. You are picking a specific example. I'm saying, for instance, maybe my
Permanent
mini-map
elements are
is
the
the
elements
permanent
that
fixture.
cannot be changed.
Dude, no. I'm saying my mini-map is the permanent fixture, right? If
Why
my
is it
mini-map, listen, if my mini-map is a permanent fixture, is it the case that my mini-map can't change its formatting? No, it's not the case. It is the case that my mini-map cannot become absent.
So when I say the laws of nature are permanent, I'm not saying that the existence of the laws of nature are permanent and their content changes. I'm saying that their content is permanent.
Then what
Right.
you mean is continuous.
No, not continuous. They don't change. Change
That's
is
what
irrelevant to the
continuous
discussion.
means.
No. Continuity itself is irrelevant. They're actually a permanent fixture. You can even consider them as a singular thing that isn't continuous. It doesn't need to even have.
Okay, what's the
extension in
opposite of
time.
permanent?
Right. Okay. Here's the thing.
Now, what's the
I would
opposite of
say-
permanent?
The opposite of permanent, impermanent.
Yes, which is temporary, correct?
Yes.
What's temporary mean?
Changes.
No, temporary means that sometimes it is and sometimes it is not.
Which is a change.
No, it's not a change. It's a very specific change. It's not change in general. It's not
Right.
change in general. Okay? Impermanence means sometimes it is the case and sometimes it is not the case. It does not mean that it is the case,
Okay.
but it's changing.
This might make it a little bit easier for. I think maybe I've just chosen the wrong words or something. Time does not pass to the laws of nature.
Yep.
Time doesn't pass, but continuity is irrelevant.
I accept that. No, but that
Something
is what
for which time does not exist doesn't have continuity in time.
I mean, I
right?
don't accept that. I'm saying the exact thing that you're saying, that time does not exist for the laws of nature, that is what we call the continuity of the laws of nature. The idea that they do not change.
How can something be? Why would we describe something that is timeless as continuous? It doesn't have time.
Because we live in the time. In the timeline, it is continuous. If the laws of nature exist in a sense that is not subject to time, then for every moment in time, the laws are continuous.
It's simply timeless. Like
Yes,
continuity
that's the
is
same
a fun
thing.
word, but it's timeless.
I mean, like, you can say that. There's a difference between atemporal and continuity, right? Atemporal is an assertion about the ontological state of the thing. I'm saying, like, from the
Atemporal.
phenomenological perspective of subjectivity, what we can absolutely say about the laws of nature is that they appear continuous. That is, day to day, they do not change.
You can absolutely say that they appear to be away.
Of course. But that's what I am
Then
saying.
aren't you
I'm
just
saying
saying
you,
that
the
they
only
are?
thing I
That's
mean, the
just
only thing you can say is that they appear to be timeless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
I'm
you're
saying the same
they're
thing,
coherent
except
statements. Yeah.
I'm making a weaker claim. You're saying they appear to be timeless. Now, timeless, that's outside of your scope, right? That's a bold claim. You couldn't know
So,
that.
but
Now, I happen
so
to
is your
agree.
claim.
No, but I happen to agree, but my claim is weaker. I'm saying something that can be apprehended from within, right? You can't apprehend the timelessness directly. You cannot, because you
No.
are bound by time. You can
Of course not.
apprehend the continuity directly.
Right.
So there's my claim is weaker.
Your claim isn't hugely different, right? So
I
the reason
mean-
I'll say the laws of nature are atemporal, right, is what I'm doing is I'm not inducing, I'm not deducing either. I'm abducing, right? Abducing is when you see
No, I
a
agree.
pattern
No,
and
but
you
the thing
form
is,
up
I agree. I agree, but I'm saying, right, abductive explanations. I love them. They're really awesome, right? But the thing is, an abductive explanation is something
Mhm.
that, like, is less reliable than an inductive explanation.
But
That's
what
a
does
fact.
it mean to even say that an inductive argument is reliable?
It means that, like, like, abductive arguments cannot be evaluated against the environment. Inductive
can.
arguments can. No.
So I can evaluate an abductive argument. So here's an example. We have the law of gravity. What we do here, right, is that we observe, we form up a theorem. The theorem has consequences. We check for the consequences of that theorem, right? If the consequences more or less line up,
No.
we say
When you
not
check
too
for the
bad.
no, stop. When you check for the consequences of a general rule, you're checking induction. You're not checking
Then no.
abduction at that
So
stage.
you're not able
Abduction-
to verify nor falsify
abduction-
the original
Dude,
thing.
abduction is the way you conjecture the theory, right?
Yes.
If you say the theory is true and then
Mhm.
test it, you're treating it as a general rule. A general rule is called an inference. By the time you're testing it, you're testing inference.
You're actually just testing your abduction.
No, you're testing induction, I'm telling you.
You're not testing an inductive.
You
statement.
are. You're testing the general rule and whether or not it applies.
Right. So a general rule can come in two varieties. An
No, but
inductive
no.
rule is formed into
A
abductive.
general rule is by definition inductive. You can
No, not
arrive at a
necessarily,
general
so-
rule. You can
By-
arrive at a general rule through an abductive argument, but as soon as you have a general rule and you say that the general rule is representative of the world, that is an inductive claim.
No, abduction's an entirely different species of
Okay,
reason.
can you
It's
please
not-
get me the definitions? Show me that you're right, because I know you're not. Right? Abductive explanations cannot be tested.
Yeah, give me a second. It is a form of inference, true, but not induction, right? It's sometimes
Mhm.
called retroduction, if you wish. But it's
Mhm.
a form of logical inference which starts with an observation or set of observation, then seeks to find the simplest and most likely explanation for the observation.
Yep.
This process, unlike deductive reasoning, yields a plausible conclusion, but does not positively verify. Right?
Yep.
As a result, they're qualified as having a remnant of uncertainty or doubt, which is why we describe it as best available, most likely. Right? Some people call inference the best explanation, whereas induction is not inference to the best explanation. You're mistaken that. Induction is inference to the most likely pattern. Right? The best explanation is not the most likely pattern. They may seem very
What?
similar, but they're not quite the same. So,
Can you explain what the difference is?
sure. Say I throw a whole bunch of rocks, right? An inference can be very specific, or an inference by its own nature cannot extend beyond the observed data, right? So if I want to make a theory of gravity, I can't actually ever infer it. The problem being that all I can do is infer rules per object. So I have a rule of rocks, rule of feathers, rule of cannon shot, rule of people, baseball, so on. Because all I can ever do is infer for that. The rule I can
No, because
draw is going to be a rule of rocks. It won't be a
no,
general tier of falling
no,
objects.
you
because
can
don't
infer.
observe objects.
No,
They'll
you can
actually
infer from the set of all physical objects. You don't have to
You can't
categorize it just
infer
to
from a
rocks.
set of all physical
Yes, you
objects because you're
can.
not a god.
No, you're not making
Since
an
okay,
inference.
when have
Look,
you seen
you're
the
not.
abstract entity called all physical
Oh,
objects?
dude, come on,
You simply
stop.
haven't.
You're not making an inference about the specific physical objects. You're making an inference about physical mechanics, right? Physical
That-
mechanics.
That's abduction. That's a difference,
No,
right? Inferences
no.
are-
Look
inferences
here.
are
Look, I'll tell you how it's not abduction. All right. If I have a lot of data, all of the data reflects the way that physical objects move and interact in the world, right? I look at all the data and I say, okay, looking at the data, this rule would satisfy all the data. I'm not doing anything outside of looking at the data. And I come up with a general rule, and that rule could be gravity. And that is not abductive.
Yes. So
So I just showed you that you can make an inference about such a thing.
have you encountered abductive reasoning before, or was this?
Dude,
Okay.
I use abductive reasoning for my
Okay,
thesis paper. Yes, I have encountered
offhand, do you know
abductive
what
reasoning.
logical fallacy it's equivalent to that induction
What-
isn't?
What logical fallacy it's equivalent to?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily equivalent to any logical
It's
fallacy.
formally equivalent to something. I'm looking for a thing.
No, why don't you tell me?
It's formally equivalent to a firmly consequence, where induction isn't, right? Induction is similar, but it isn't in really the exact same,
That's my whole point.
right? So affirming the consequence is what we do in science. We kind of need to, right? We need post
No.
hoc ergo propter hoc, right?
Look,
Because of
wait,
multiple
wait,
outcomes
wait,
the
wait,
functions
wait.
be.
like what you just said there was that abductive reasoning is equivalent structurally to a fallacy. And that was
Formal
the argument
equivalent.
that I was making. That's what structurally means. A formal fallacy is a
Yeah, I
structurally
know.
flawed argument. Okay, so the point is, initially, I pointed out that the claim you were making was stronger than mine. Mine was a weaker claim. And the reason that mine is more justifiable is exactly the thing you just identified, which is that your claim structurally coheres to a fallacy, thus is more likely to be false than
Right.
my claim, which is inductive.
So I contend that more or less likely is kind of not a sensible approach, even to
Okay, so-
inductive reasoning, right? So
well,
you can induce,
I mean-
but it doesn't make it doesn't actually make your explanation more or less likely. It doesn't.
let me put it to
right?
you this way. Do you know what the principle of parsimony is?
I've forgotten it. Could you explain?
Okay, so the principle of parsimony is called, in other terms, Occam's razor. It's the idea that, in general, simple explanations are better than complicated ones, right? So when you have an abductive explanation, all right, the reason that an inductive explanation is superior in terms of like being less likely to be false is that an abductive explanation requires you to make more unjustified assumptions.
Of course it does.
Yes, so that, no, stop. According to the principle of parsimony, any theory or explanation which requires you to make more unjustified assumptions is technically inferior to an equivalent explanation that requires you to make less.
Yes, and in that
Yeah, so
sense,
there.
modern science is technically inferior, right? We in as far as you want
no.
to go with it, right? Modern science infers out a fascinating variety of objects, right? We talk of if you want to go with Einsteinian, we can go and talk about space-time fabric. We can talk about string theorem, right? We can talk about spooky action at
Yes.
distance. The number of things we're inferring here is clear violation of Occam's razor, if you wish, right?
No, I don't
We
agree.
are
I don't see
inferring
how that.
really
How is
crazy
that a
things about the
violation?
world. Spooky action at distance? That's FTL transmission of information, right? You
Dude,
realize that?
Like, no, but the point that I'm making is that, like, independent of any specific application of the fucking, like, models of reasoning, I'm saying that abductive reasoning is, like,
Yes.
inferior to inductive reasoning. Like,
Inferior and
technically, according
superiority don't
no,
make sense.
according
Okay, so what I
they
would
do
like to,
according to the principle of parsimony. Okay, abductive reasoning is inferior according to parsimony than inductive reasoning. It's inferior to it. Like technically, it is. Like, because you have to make more unjustified assumptions, it is technically inferior to have an abductive explanation than an inductive one. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have abductive explanations. I'm saying that where possible, if we're making two very similar claims and we could just make the inductive one, we should.
Hello.
No, I see what you're saying. I don't think Occam's razor is like that important. So
I mean,
don't
I
mind.
personally do.
Yeah, no, I can accept that it is valuable. I don't think it's that important. I don't mind if scientists conjecture up string theory. That's fine, as long as it is more efficacious. So the theory that follows is more
I
efficacious.
think that
It covers
that's.
all the
I
ground we've
think,
had in the past, and then proceeds to produce
of course,
a couple
of
of
course.
new things that we can go for. That's cool.
Yeah, but we agree, right, that like the reason that science produces efficacious like models is because it like improves on the previous ones, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like one of the ways that it improves on the previous ones is that it tries to eliminate any potential mistakes, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
that's what the
wait.
principle of parsimony is.
No,
The
it doesn't
principle of
eliminate any
parsimony.
potential mistakes. All
It
it
tries
does is
to
you get a new
eliminate
model.
as many. No. It tries to eliminate as many potential mistakes as possible, right? Like in a model of science, in a scientific model, right? When you're modeling a phenomena, if you identify a mistake, you get rid of it. And if you identify something where you're making an assumption which you do not have to make, you get rid of that as well, because any assumption you do not have to make could be another place that you've made an error, and you
Right,
want to
so
minimize the number of errors you could be
we-
making, right?
We have a name for the theorems that we can create that don't have any mistakes. They're called unfalsifiable. They're actually kind of despised.
Yes.
We
I
don't
understand
like
that, but what I'm saying is that like the methodology of science.
Already know. So we actually already know that we don't actually look for the theorems that eliminate mistakes.
No,
It's
but
not
here's what I'm
really a
saying.
priority here.
Here's what I'm saying is that the methodology of science is only effective insofar as it eliminates mistakes via falsification, right? Like that's how we progress,
doesn't
is that we
eliminate
eliminate
mistakes.
mistakes. It does. Of course it does. We falsify our model and renovate it.
So that's kind of what happens, but not exactly what I'd say is happening. I think what happens is that we form a new model of reality, right? We attempt to model it, right?
But why do we
The
form a
model
new
can
one?
be why?
Why are we forming a new one?
Why? Well, if you wish, we can maybe like a Quinian kind of errors build up.
So we do
we
have errors then.
No, just mismatches, right? Things are unexplained.
But that's what an
in our
error
current
is.
theory.
That is an error. Anything that isn't accounted for by the model constitutes an error.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
Anyway,
insofar as the
point is that
model is designed
discrepancies-
to describe.
Yeah, sure. Discrepancies mount, but we can actually ignore it for large periods of time, right? It's only the discrepancies are quite critical, right? And that's something that's kind of very socially determined.
I'm not sure if I accept that. That's the pragmatic theory of truth again. Like
Yeah, it might well be.
I don't think it is that we ignore them until they become so like
We
cumbersome that we
absolutely
have
ignore
no,
them.
dude, no. What it is we ignore them until that we have sufficient information to fix them. It's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? You can have contradictions to your theory
What
without
do you mean by
having
sufficient
an
information to
antithesis.
fix them?
Exactly.
have
You don't necessarily
information to
have the
fix them.
antithesis. That's my point. It's not about it being cumbersome over time. It's as soon as we have the information to fix it, we do.
We don't.
Like it's
It's not
the
about
moment.
information. It's about whether you have a model or theorem.
No, I'm saying
Right.
like when you have a model, right? The model encounters contradictions, right? The first time it encounters the contradictions, the things that it doesn't account for, right? You say, fuck. Either we are misinterpreting the evidence or the model is wrong. And then if you get more evidence, you're like, okay, the model is probably wrong, right? And then when enough evidence to figure out how the model is wrong, immediately you innovate the model. Immediately. You don't wait.
You know where it is wrong. You don't know how it is wrong.
No, but I'm saying like you have to. That's what That is what the antithesis points you to. That's why combining thesis and antithesis
So-
provides you with synthesis.
Okay, so knowing that, for example, gravity is not behaving the way you expect it to behave, isn't the same as knowing how, knowing the next theory. That's not.
I
they're not the
don't
same
accept
thing.
that. They're very close.
They're very no. Knowing that
Yes, they are.
knowing that something's going wrong isn't the same as knowing.
Let me put it to you
the
this
next
way,
theorem.
right? Let me put it to you this way. When you know that you've made a mistake, within the recognition that you have made a mistake is the following observation, all right? By the factor with which I identify this as a mistake, I can focus on that to figure things out about what is responsible for the mistake. So when my model got to this part of the world, it failed. Specifically, what was it dealing with? It was dealing with this, right? And so you
Yes.
go and you analyze the details of the failure, and what you find is that is an instructive map to the actual source of the problem. And if you can figure out how to follow the map and find the problem, you can solve it. And all of the contradictory pieces of evidence point to the thing that's wrong.
No, I disagree.
Yes, they do.
I think what happens, what actually happens, right? I disagree with your conception of what scientific progress. I'd say we have a mainstream model at any given point in time. You have a popular model, right? And we have fringe models. We always do. At any given moment in time, there will always be scientists that entertain a variation of the popular model, right? They compete with each other just a little bit, but the mainstream model usually tends to hold sway, right? It's the thing that is kind of dominating, mainly because in most experiments, it's the thing that wins, right? These fringe models don't deliver you anything that the mainstream model already does. So there's no reason to entertain them. However, if you encounter a scenario in which a fringe theory actually surpasses the mainstream, right? Then we become liable to substitute the
Nah.
fringe theory for the mainstream.
No,
Right?
that is just not true.
No. You
The
say it's not true,
mainstream
right? But
the mainstream theories are not just like equivalent to the other theories. It's not that the other theories do not offer anything extra. The fringe theories offer less than the main theory, and it is only when the main theory is inadequate in some way that a fringe theory can offer more. Like by definition, if the main theory were not in some sense inadequate, anything offered by the fringe theory would already be accounted for by the main.
right. So we don't know if it's inadequate or not. The
Yeah, but I'm
situation
saying,
that
like,
occurs to us in real life, we don't know
how
if
do
it's
you not know?
inadequate or not.
How do
ahead
you
of
not
time.
know? It's
You don't know.
obvious.
You
It's
don't know
obvious.
until you encounter, right? But you can't
ready?
label it beforehand.
I make a prediction. The prediction doesn't come true. My model's inaccurate.
Yes. Now you
Yeah,
don't know.
so that's
which of the-
how. I just
you
knew.
don't
I know.
what to do with it, right? You don't know.
No,
you
but
persist with
I know
theory
some things
or
about
you
it,
adopt
right?
a new rival.
I must know some things about it.
Yeah, but you don't know why it is that
I
it
don't
is
need to know
inaccurate.
why it is yet. Okay, the first step is I know that it is. The second step is working out why it is by gathering all of the instances where it does not hold true.
Right. Okay.
Those
So
instances taken collectively, they imply the problem. They do.
they don't imply the solution. All they do
No,
is
but
they highlight a problem.
by implying the problem, okay, they do imply the solution, because as soon as you know what the problem is, you can fix it. It's as simple as that. It's like, okay, this is the mistake. How could we rectify that mistake? Boom, like that. Okay, it's easy. You
Okay.
reason about it.
I'd like to just, if you could just, I don't know, if it makes any sense, just consider what I'm saying. You have a lead. Okay, let's call it leading, and we'll say the others are rival. You have a leading scientific theorem, right? Your leading scientific theorem is, say, Newtonian, right now, right? At any given moment in time, very few, because we are fallible human beings, our theorems rarely ever hit perfection immediately. We're aware that there will be flaws, right? So some flaws occur, and we're not entirely sure why we have those flaws. Sometimes we discover that those flaws require a very minor fix to whatever your leading theory is, like very small. It's literally like, oh, we need to just do this maths differently, right? and nothing really changes. Like you don't actually change your postulates or anything. You're just changing something on the fringe of that theory, right? So refinements to the refining. You can refine a theory if you wish. That's one thing that happens in leading theories. Sometimes though, you encounter a problem that is much more fatal, right? You get something like the ultraviolet
course.
catastrophe, right? And it starts shitting out infinities, and you're like, well, this is a bad one, right? And what will happen is your community will actually split. You'll get the refiners who tend to say, hey, maybe this is just an implementation problem, right? There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the theorem. The problem is how we're using it, right?
No.
You
Yes.
get another group. You do always get another group, though, who says, hey, implementation, like working on that, isn't going to give you shit. There's a fundamental error. One of the core aspects of this leading theorem is it's self-flawed. There's a flawed assumption in here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what will happen is that these two streams will actually continue to run. So there was actually a period with Newtonian science up against Einsteinian, right? Where it actually continued to run. There's a refining group attempting to refine
Of
it,
course.
right? The thing that occurred in this scenario is that the rival group, right, their theorem hit the point of, you can consider it maturity. It hit maturity with regard to our current set of data faster than their refining group on the Newtonian, right? And maturity here refers to the ability to encompass all current findings and then some, right?
No, because
It
that
encompasses
implicit,
conclusions,
like
solves the current contradictions. and
in
suggests
that
more.
conceptualization, though, you're implicitly suggesting that the theories, in principle, are equivalent, and that is not the case.
No, at the point of
No,
if
when you
were
say
trying to then
maturity, when you say
when you
maturity,
say-
right? You're implying that, like, it's just a matter of how quickly each reach the point of encompassing all the material, which does imply that each of
I'm
them are
saying that-
equally capable of the thing. And I
so
don't
that's
accept that.
unintended implication. Don't feel like I actually implied that, but I can
Okay,
see
no,
what
but
you're saying.
I
It's
think
unclear
alright,
language
so,
on my behalf, right? So I'm just saying that what will happen is between your leading theory and your rivals, one of them will eventually hit the point where they explain your pre-existing data,
of course,
some of the troublesome data, and then sometimes they'll even give you new things to look
yes,
for.
of course.
Right? Right? You can't tell prior what's going to occur. So
That's
now,
irrelevant, though.
sitting here today, right? I don't think there's any scientist that can sit here today and tell you if it is the case that the standard model of physics needs refining or it needs a paradigm shift. No one can
No,
tell
but
you that right now.
I'm not sure how
No
you
one
think
has that.
that's in contradiction to what I said, though.
What do you mean? No, you think that you seem to have this inception
No,
where
no,
it's like
I agreed with all of
the
that.
errors, we look at the errors, and the errors themselves will suggest a solution. I'm saying
That's
no,
true.
sometimes you
That's
don't.
correct.
I'm saying that you don't know whether refinement's needed or
That's irrelevant.
change the code. No, it's important. It's the Quine Duham thesis. It's a core thing of sci-fi.
No, but the point that I'm making is
ideal,
very simple.
right?
I
It's not
fundamentally,
simple, it's
dude, listen.
a key
I
part of writing on the
fundamentally,
issue.
no, listen. The point I'm making is simple, right? I agree with everything that you just said, but none of it contradicted the thing I was saying.
Which is, what do you think?
I'm not denying that that's part of science. I'm saying, regardless of whether a refinement or a renovation is needed, the error that is made, the contradictions to the theory, are still the instructive element that helps you to conceptualize the solution.
Okay, so they're not. Let me
But
explain,
how?
right?
You didn't
So
demonstrate that with your
When we
example.
look at the ultraviolet catastrophe, right? What you get is a mismatch in the data. That mismatch
Dude,
itself
you
is
can't just say the thing
completely-
again.
Wait, no, I know. Oh, is it like a bad example or?
No, I said I agreed with that. It doesn't contradict me.
I'm saying that no. I'm giving you an example, a real life thing, right? So
No, but you said that example at the start of what you said just before.
I know, because it seems useful, right? So I mean, I would almost put this up. In every real life example in which a leading theory has struggled to explain something, that struggling to explain something hasn't itself been enough information to determine the solution. What is
Not
often
immediately.
required, what is often not immediately. It just isn't enough information, right? The thing is, what's often required is some exterior information, much more than this, right? So maybe it takes someone fundamentally reworking a postulate, then seeing the results of it, right? And then coming in with that new model and applying to a situation.
Why did someone rework that postulate specifically?
Just because. Oh, so are you?
Well, so you're saying it's hit and miss? Is that what you're implying?
No, I'm just saying.
No, they were aiming at
inspiration
that
is not-
postulate. Why did they aim at that postulate specifically? Because it was related to the error,
They didn't
obviously.
need to aim at that postulate.
They did.
mean,
they needed
no,
to
they
aim
didn't.
at the incorrect postulate. Yes or no?
No, they didn't need to aim at the.
So you're
incorrect
saying there
postulate.
was
You can
no
miss, you can
particular.
miss.
No, my point
can
is,
miss.
you're saying either that they were just hit and missing to get the correct one, or you're saying that they were not aiming at the correct thing.
No, they don't know where to aim.
No,
This
but
is-
I'm
this is-
saying,
don't know where
here's
to
what I'm
aim,
saying.
Right?
I'm
Have an
saying
error,
that's
you
wrong.
don't know where to
That's
aim.
wrong. That is wrong. Okay,
Okay,
people
can you give
don't
any,
hit and
Can you give
miss.
any real world example of your theorem? Like idea?
Of course.
Any.
All right. Yes, easily. All right. When Einstein derived his theories of relativity, he didn't do it through hit and miss. Obviously, what he did was he thought about the limitations of the current model through a thought experiment. He conceptualized an exception to the model with a thought experiment, and he used the exception to derive the correct paradigm of interpretation.
Yes. Now, do you think
So
Einstein's-
there, you
No,
just
no,
admitted.
wait.
Yeah, you said yes, right?
In sync. So your point is that you can, maybe there's a word stuck in here, right? I think you can reliably derive the solution. Or are you just saying that some people, one person will eventually derive the solution? Because there's a difference here, right?
I'm saying that one person will eventually
do
derive the solution,
okay.
but
Sure,
that when they do it,
derive a solution. Sure, trivially true.
when
I'll
they
just
do
grant you
it, the
I'll grant you
way
it.
that
It's
this
granted.
no, but you're not listening though. The
Trivially
way that the solution is derived is by paying very close attention to the inadequacies of the previous model.
Yeah, it's trivial. Sure, you're right.
It's not
Yeah,
trivial.
One person
That's not
will
trivial.
eventually be
How do you? No, sorry.
inspired by
I'm sorry.
an error
How
to
do you
fix
just
it.
randomly get to assert that it's trivial?
You're not saying you can reliably do so. So you're not saying. So there's a difference.
I
right?
am saying no. I'm not.
One side interests me,
Dude,
the
you're
other is
really
boring as hell.
straw manning me here. Listen very carefully. I'm not saying that it reliably occurs in a certain fashion, as in like, people always get it immediately or even quickly. I'm saying the thing that's reliable is that every time we renovate the model, we do so the same way, which is to pay very close attention to the inadequacies of the previous one.
Right. So I'm saying
That is reliable.
So what I'm saying is what's happening here is a form of the survivorship bias, right? You're looking at the one guy who succeeded, and sure, when you look at the one guy who succeeded, yeah, by all means, like if you take Einstein's example, right, you're going to see what you're going to look.
You asked me for an example.
So,
I don't understand how you get to make that criticism.
And the reason I want to use because I knew that this would probably occur.
No, you can't ask me for an example and then say you gave an
really
example, and your example is indicating that you're using a bias in your explanation.
So your example that you gave me indicates the usage of the survivorship bias, is what I'm saying, right?
Oh, dude, but the point is that by asking me for an example, you guarantee that you can use that criticism against me, which means it's not very fair of you. You asked for the example. I didn't give it to you. You asked.
Likely use the survivorship bias.
No, but everybody who uses an example uses a survivorship bias.
Not as strongly as this. Sure,
yes, as strongly as that.
You actually moments ago said that you agreed that not everyone's going to be reliably led to a solution. You're actually aware that there is a large contingent of people who see the same problem and aren't led to any solution at all, right?
Duh. That's because people differ in abilities.
And you are, so you're very
people differ in abilities. You're not demonstrating anything about the problem.
Not different abilities, even.
Yes,
right?
different abilities. Einstein was exceptional. That is why Einstein got the solution.
He's smart, but he's not.
He was exceptional. He had exceptional spatial awareness. That's what let him derive the theory of relativity.
So you mean to say, like, awareness of there being an issue is what necessary?
Is a fundamental.
Right?
Yes.
And another quality is talent. That's necessary, but not sufficient.
Pardon?
talent is necessary but not sufficient. At least Einsteinian level talent is
Yes,
necessary
yes,
but
that
not
is what I'm
sufficient.
saying. Yes.
Yeah, no. The trouble here is that you and me have very different sets of assumptions.
Oh,
here,
I
right?
don't want. Yeah, but I like you understand that cannot be a refutation.
Why? Oh no, it's not
Because
refutation.
you're just
Hell no.
saying like we disagree. That's not a
No.
refutation.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that we disagree. That's all I'm saying. Right? It's nothing
Okay,
more or
but
less than
maybe
this. It
we
doesn't
could
say
agree,
this,
right? Maybe we could, for
I
instance,
think that,
agree
look,
about
I
why we
understand.
disagree.
So you and me will agree insofar as saying that the progress of science is inevitable, right? But
Mhm.
I don't agree that, say, awareness of a problem leads to a solution. I think that
I didn't.
most of the time,
That
I think
is a
if you were to
simplistic reduction.
wait, I would say if you were to inductively infer anything, what you'd probably see is something like 1,000 scientists be aware that there's an issue, maybe up to 1,000,000, and only one guy gets it right. Meaning that the
Yeah, but that
inductive
doesn't
inference here
contradict
is
what I'm
that
saying.
most of the time, awareness of a problem doesn't actually lead to a solution. That's what we should
Yeah,
infer.
that's not.
Right?
That doesn't address what I'm
Um,
saying.
But I think you would agree that the inference here would actually naturally be that awareness of a solution doesn't lead to a solution, right?
That's not the
It
point.
does most of the time. It doesn't lead
Okay,
to
let me
anything at
see.
all.
Let
It
me
leads
see if
to
I can make it
futility.
like. Let me see if I can make it super clear to you. I shouldn't have to because you actually got it in your own words. You said it to me. I said yes, right? What I'm saying is that like the what would you say, the development of the solution to a problem is necessarily predicated upon a consideration of the inadequacies of the problematic framework. You're saying what
Sure.
is inadequate about the model, and that is how you derive the solution. I'm not saying that knowing what the inadequacy is necessarily leads you to derive the solution, and I'm not too sure how you can even confuse the two because they're very distinct.
It's a necessary condition. It is not necessarily efficacious, right?
No, but that's
it's
not the point. The
necessary
point
that you're
is,
aware there's a
no,
problem to fix a
it
problem.
is necessarily efficacious. It's that, like, there are other factors involved in being able to realize the efficacious nature of it, right? It's the same thing as, for instance, all right, the idea of, let's say, the idea that it's possible to make heavier than air flying machines. It's not that that idea had no efficacy. It's that, like, for a long time we built them wrong, and then when we built them right, the idea had all the efficacy.
No, that's wait, what?
The idea of being able to make machines that were heavier than air that could fly, right? Now that wasn't effective. That idea didn't work up until it did work, and then it has worked ever since.
I mean, yeah. How does that relate
Yeah,
to
so the
science?
point is that idea in itself, you might say that it wasn't like necessarily efficacious, but I'm saying that the way that you construe the idea is also involved in whether or not the efficacy of the idea is realized. The idea that you can have machines that are heavier than air that can fly, that idea is actually efficacious. Right? There are just other factors involved in realizing the efficacy.
Yeah, it's an engineering problem. I don't see how an
Exactly.
engineering problem.
That's what I said. That's what I said. So I'm saying that the like problems, the inadequacies of the previous model, that is necessarily efficacious towards a solution. It's an engineering problem. You need to engineer it properly, and obviously. So Einstein brilliantly engineered the solution to the problem, and other people didn't engineer very good ones.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
So that's the exact analogy.
right. Because it's historical, by all means, we know the end of this thing, right? It's
No, but I'm
definitely the
saying
case
that pattern is continuous. It's going on today, and it'll go on into the future.
it will go on to a future past the part they're going to struggle to assert. You can inductively infer it, yeah, sure, but
Yes,
that
of
doesn't make
course,
it
and
true.
I'm comfortable with making the inference.
Yes, of course, we all should be. It is a good inductive inference, right? Something like the sun will rise tomorrow is a good inductive inference.
Of course.
Doesn't actually make it true, just
It
makes
doesn't
a
matter.
good
I don't
inductive
need to know
inference.
what's true. I admit that truth is something which is unattainable from my subjective perception. All I can settle for is what seems to me to be true. And I do my best to critique that, and I invite other people to critique it too. I'm trying to make sure that what I believe to be true is as close to what is actually true as possible, while nonetheless maintaining in my mind that such a thing is impossible for me. I cannot reach the thing that I aim for, but aiming for it is useful. And so that's what I do. And to the degree that I think that my efforts are consistent with my goal, I call what I believe to be true, true.
You're not a pragmatist?
No, I'm not a pragmatist.
It's very pragmatic of you, though.
That's because the pragmatic theory of truth is not completely incorrect. It's just completely incomplete.
It was never intended to be complete.
Yeah, but the point is that if you have a complete model of truth, then you don't need the pragmatic theory of truth, and it becomes
if you
incorrect.
have a complete model of truth, then you'd at least have one true model.
Well, you'd have a subjective model of truth that you're saying is true.
It'd be as close to true as you could possibly get. It would
Of course, yeah.
What am I saying? What am I saying? Right. Okay. So I disagree that induction is necessarily stronger or weaker. Like right at the beginning, we're talking about
I
whether
feel
induction's
like I actually
stronger or
got you
weaker,
to
but-
admit on
So
two separate
what
occasions.
happens for me is you get, was it Bertrand Russell? Yeah, Bertrand Russell. There's a Bertrand
Bertrand
Russell
Russell.
around, fun guy. Bertrand Russell. He talks about the issues with induction. So it's human, not so exciting. But one of the issues is that while you can inductively infer something, you don't just not get truth. You don't even get proper confidence or likelihood or probability, right? So you can observe something be the case in every instance in the past, but now that's actually truly compelling towards the future. Not even in a
Yes.
more likely sense. It's actually kind of,
I
in
mean,
a weird way, it's
that
irrelevant.
look,
all the
I
same.
can understand how you reach that conclusion because you're using a pragmatic theory of truth. But because of what I understand truth to be, I am
That's-
more comfortable making that claim.
That's actually kind of completely I would say it's completely wrong seeing it because
I mean, you
under
can't
pragmatic theory of
say
truth,
it's completely wrong.
under pragmatic theory of truth, there's a certain sense of justification to why we would use induction, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, I would wonder
No, but
what exactly it is that someone's doing.
dude, the thing is, I said it wasn't wrong. It's incomplete. My
Mhm.
theory of truth includes yours. It just is
Yeah.
better because it goes further. I actually
Sure.
say I describe truth in the ontological sense, not just in the epistemological sense.
Right. So my own stance, I use pragmatism as a meta-philosophical statement. I don't care what the remainder of philosophy is. It actually exists as a meta-philosophy. It sets a
Well, I
direction.
don't
and
accept that. It's
scope
incomplete.
of the
It's not even incomplete. It's like inadequate. It doesn't account for
Right.
instance, morality, right? Because if you say the pragmatic theory of truth is sufficient, then we get to morality, and you, of course, are like compelled to say, for instance, that morality is about right and wrong, where right is defined by what promotes well-being, and wrong is defined by what detriments well-being. Do you agree?
Vaguely, yeah. What's
Yeah,
wrong with
that's
that?
insufficient.
Why is
Insufficient.
it
Because
insufficient?
what benefits my well-being could well detriment yours.
And why does that make it insufficient?
That's a contradiction. How can something be both right and wrong? It cannot.
It is right for you and wrong for me.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that shouldn't be possible. The fact that you can say that means that the terms are insufficient.
Yeah, right. So it's not universal.
So I'm saying
It's
the
not like a
pragmatic
categorical
theory of
imperative.
truth. The pragmatic theory of truth is what results in the insufficiency, and that if you use a more complete model of truth, you don't get the insufficiency.
Nearly all forms of consequentialist egotism will suffer that, regardless
Yes,
of the
of course, I'm
epistemology
not a
used.
consequentialist.
Right, yeah. So sure, because if you're not a consequentialist, then by default,
No, but I'm
almost
saying
by
like
default,
I'm saying that you can include the consequentialist analysis without settling for it.
So personally, I am an egotist. I don't mind it. I think by all means we can't actually derive universal morality, right? I don't think that's derivable. What you're always doing, and people mistaken it, but what you're always doing is deriving it for yourself. All you ever
Most
do
of the
when you do
time.
morality is you just derive it for yourself.
Well, look, here's what I think. I think
It's not
that
extensible.
if
It doesn't spread.
look, if you were using the correct terms, then what you derived for yourself to be the ultimate good would automatically cohere with the good of everybody else.
No, why should it?
Yes. No, if you were using the correct terms. Of course, according to you, that will not be the case because you use a pragmatic theory of truth, right? I'm saying that's incomplete. If it is incomplete, then your analysis on morality is necessarily incomplete. So when you say it shouldn't be the case, that is coming from a limited perspective, right? Because all you can see is the way it is for the pragmatic theory of truth. I'm saying, like, from where I'm sitting, it is actually better accounted for by different terms.
Okay, there's two things to say here. One, I'll give you the same line I give Evan. If you have a unique worldview, which just states that things are wrong, that's great. But
It
since
doesn't
I'm not
state
within
things
your
are
world,
wrong.
since I'm not within your worldview, it's you already
What did
are
I
aware
state?
that it's not
What
relevant.
did I state was wrong?
Right?
I didn't say anything was wrong.
You just said by your worldview, right? That's essentially what you are going to end up being. Yeah. By your worldview, the pragmatic theory of truth is wrong, or
No.
whichever way you wish it to be. I don't
No.
mind, right?
There's
By
a
all
real
means, you are
difference
entitled
between
to-
incomplete. Wait, there is a huge difference between incomplete and wrong. Huge. Massive.
Okay, incomplete doesn't mean wrong, right? We agree on this?
Exactly.
Right. So
it's
if
incomplete.
you were to,
It's not
Right.
wrong. It's just not
So-
right.
What?
It's not wrong. It's partly correct. It is just not completely correct.
Right. So I don't think completeness is necessary.
No, I don't think completeness is necessary in general, because obviously completeness from a logical standpoint is impossible. But I'm saying, if we're performing an analysis, completeness to the best of our ability is necessary, and the pragmatic theory of truth terminates the analysis before we get to the end of what we're capable of.
Basically, it doesn't go as foundational as it could get.
Could you talk to that?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so basically, my understanding of truth is an ontological one. Truth is transcendent. Truth is that which is as it is, independently of everything you might think of it, perceive about it, or say about it, right? And so when you're saying that what's true is what's useful, I'm saying something a hell of a lot stronger than that. Hell of a lot stronger.
Because it's stronger, it demands more evidence, right? You earlier rejected abduction because it asks for too much.
I didn't reject it.
Can I not
I
reject?
said I didn't reject it.
Okay, you say that we should favor the weaker theorem, right?
No, I said
By
that
all
if we
by
have, I
default-
said, wait, let's be clear. I said if we have two claims that are basically equivalent, and one of them is stronger and one of them is weaker, and we could, like, it would be sufficient to make the weaker claim for our purposes, we should go with the weaker claim.
Right.
So I'm saying for our purposes,
you're making,
it's not sufficient to go with the weaker claim about truth.
Right. Because the claim you're making is the basis of epistemology, right? It is essentially the strongest claim you could make.
Right? Of course.
It is stronger than every other subsequent claim.
Of course.
Every other claim draws its strength from that. Therefore, when I claim and you say that my worldview is a subset of yours,
but I'm not dismissing it.
But if I say a lesser claim is the foundation of mine, by the same idea that we should prefer the weaker claim, then we should prefer mine.
No. You're like, were you listening to the other two conditions? If your claim,
complete.
If
I see mine as an early termination of yours, right? So the endpoints are the same. The endpoints
is your claim functionally equivalent to mine?
I'm asking you, is it?
No, it's not. No, not at all.
Then can you talk to where it is functionally different?
Yeah, of course. Okay. I'm saying what is true is what is useful does not account for the fact that what is useful does not always like account for all the things that are true. There are things that are true in the world that don't correspond to any utility for you. Like, well, black holes are not useful to you.
I can.
Like,
you know, at the end
there
of the
are
day,
lots of
what
things in the
pragmatic is not
world.
is pragmatism, right?
No, but the pragmatic theory of truth is thus: what is true is what is useful. That is what the pragmatic theory of truth is. Like, I'm telling you, that is the analysis of truth that the pragmatists.
If your private road connects to a government road, you cannot say that my laws are going to be different from the government road.
No, I didn't say that. I said that, like, if
No,
you're
you both are agreeing.
if you have something on private property, right, then you don't need a driver's license to drive on it.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Yes,
but the
but
governor wants to be able
So if you have a road on private property that connects up to a government road,
It has less ambiguity. The precision and
Which
clarity.
but that's
listen,
you just
listen.
said the same thing in a different
No,
way.
no. The precision and clarity are maintained as long as it's continuous from a previous context where the information is explicit. Okay, as long as you've said at the start something that you later rely on as implicit, you can totally treat it as implicit later.
But the point
Transcendent is still a word that fits the idea that it cannot fit into a human lens because it is transcendent of it. It is not limited to it. So anything we do in an attempt to reduce it into our limits will fail automatically, categorically, denotationally. So yes, we can still strive to find that other word, but transcendent is not it. That's the conclusion.
How do you know for